Bonjour et bienvenue dans la salle de presse de la Commission européenne en présence physique et merci de nous suivre également en ligne et aussi en direct sur Europe by Satellite aujourd'hui, jeudi 22 juillet. Pour commencer nos annonces d'aujourd'hui, j'aimerais inviter Sonia à vous donner des nouvelles concernant notre soutien à la recherche pour lutter contre le coronavirus.
Merci beaucoup, Dana. Good afternoon. The Commission keeps stepping up its action to support and enable urgent research into the coronavirus and its variants. Thus, we have shortlisted 11 new projects worth 120 million euros from Horizon Europe, the European Research and Innovation Programme. These projects involve 312 research teams from 40 countries, including 38 participants from 23 countries outside the European Union. Most of the projects will support clinical trials for new treatments and vaccines, as well as the development of large-scale coronavirus cohorts and networks beyond Europe's borders. This funding is part of a wide range of research and innovation actions taken to fight the coronavirus and its variants, which contribute to the Commission's overall action to prevent, mitigate, and respond to the impact of the coronavirus and its variants. This is in line with the new European Biodefense Preparedness Plan, the so-called HERA Incubator. For more information on the specific projects, please consult our press release and the fact sheet that we have published. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sonia. And now, allow me to provide you information on the ministerial meeting taking place today. Indeed, there are two informal ministerial meetings taking place today in Slovenia. One involves European Affairs ministers and the other one competitiveness ministers. During the meeting with European Affairs ministers, the Slovenian presidency will present its priorities for the semester. The ministers will also exchange with their counterparts from Western Balkan countries and will discuss about how to strengthen the Union's resilience to crises. A press conference is scheduled at 1:30 with the participation of Commissioner Janez Lenarčič. On their side, competitiveness ministers will exchange on the transition to a circular economy and creative industries as a generator of added value in the economy. A press conference is foreseen at 4 o'clock this afternoon. As usual, I will invite you to keep your questions related to these matters for the press conferences which follow the ministerial meetings. And with this, we are open to take your questions today. Thank you, Irini.
Thank you, Dana. It's on Foreign Affairs in Cyprus. And I would like to ask if there are any plans on an extraordinary Foreign Affairs Council regarding the provocative actions from the side of the Turkish president. And secondly, in general, what are the next steps regarding the recent actions from the side of Tayyip Erdogan and Ersin Tatar? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Irini. In relation to the first question, well, I will invite you to ask the presidency because we are not in charge of convening council sessions and extraordinary councils. In relation to the second one, I will invite Nabila to provide you our position.
Thanks, Irini, for your question. As you know, the Political and the Security Committee is meeting this morning for an exchange of views on Varosha. The EU continues to be guided by the relevant UN Security Council resolutions with respect to Varosha, as you have seen it in the statement that we have published, which must be respected in full. And these resolutions are 550 and 789. The High Representative said it in his statement. The EU is following the ongoing consultations of the UN Security Council on Cyprus and will decide on the next steps accordingly.
Thank you very much, Nabila. Are there any additional questions on this matter for Nabila today? So please only keep your hand up if you have a question on this matter. I see a few questions on this lined up in our chat. So yes, Catherine, you are the first. Go ahead.
All right. Apologies. Sorry, my error. Sorry.
All right, so Catherine's question was not about this. I will now try with Gregory. Gregory, is it about this matter, Cyprus?
It's about international relations, but not Cyprus, if I can.
Then I will invite you to wait a bit, because I suspect there are additional questions on the Cyprus issue, and we like to group our questions and answers along topics. So, George.
Good morning. Thank you. It's a follow-up to the question of my colleague. Since Nabila said that the HRVP said that the EU will follow the close consultation with the Security Council and act accordingly, this closed consultation has happened yesterday. So we would like to ask if there is something specific that the EU is expected to say or do on behalf of the HRVP today, or whether there will be waiting for a more official response or a declaration later today.
Look, as I said earlier, we will see what will happen today. There is still a meeting ongoing from my understanding, and once we know more, we will get back to you. That's what I can say at this point in time. I cannot go further.
Yep. Thank you very much, Nabila. I believe that George has a follow-up question, so George, go ahead.
I'll let everyone proceed with the rest of the questions. The question at the UN Security Council now seems to be whether the Security Council resolutions you mentioned have been, to what extent they have been contravened by Turkey's actions. Is the EU expecting to take a line from the Security Council on this, or does the EU have an opinion on whether these Security Council resolutions have been broken by Turkey in its actions in Varosha? Thank you.
I'm not sure I understood the question.
Yes, perhaps you can repeat the question, George, but the gist of it is if we wait for the Security Council to express its position before forming ours. But George, perhaps you repeat it just to make sure that Nabila got all the facets.
Repeat it more clearly, specifically on whether Security Council resolutions have been contravened. Isn't this something that the EU should have an opinion by itself before the Security Council takes a position? Thanks.
No, yes, I understand. As you know, the EU continues to be guided by the relevant, there are Security Council resolutions on Varosha, and we are guided by these resolutions. So we cannot just express our opinion outside the context of this resolution. So that's why I said that the HRVP Borrell will be following the situation following the ongoing consultations at the UN, and then we will decide on the next steps accordingly, without forgetting that there are some UN resolutions concerning Varosha. This being said, we have been following the situation very closely, that the HRVP has published and issued a statement that you have seen, and we had following 4 consecutive meetings where the EU leaders have set clear framework for our relationship with Turkey, taking into account several important elements, and this framework is based on the phased, proportionate and reversible approach and entails incentives and disincentives. So this is the maximum I can say at this point.
Thank you very much, Nabila. I will now invite you to keep your hands up if you have additional questions for Nabila on this subject specifically. So we are still on Cyprus. David, vas-y.
Oui, merci. C'est une question institutionnelle en fait, parce que tu as dit qu'on doit demander au Conseil s'ils vont convoquer, à la présidence du Conseil, s'ils vont convoquer un Conseil ordinaire en relations extérieures, mais j'avais compris que le haut représentant a le droit de convoquer des conseils affaires extérieures, vu qu'il est le président.
Oui, en effet, le haut représentant peut en effet convoquer un conseil d'affaires étrangères. Pour l'instant, rien n'est planifié à ce stade. Comme je l'ai dit, on attend, mais en effet, il est possible que le haut représentant convoque un conseil.
Merci beaucoup. Christian.
Oui, en fait, c'est le prolongement de la question de David. Lors de la dernière réunion des ministres des Affaires étrangères, M. Borrell a laissé comprendre qu'il y avait une possibilité de convoquer une réunion extraordinaire compte tenu de l'actualité assez lourde qui avait été abordée. Il y avait notamment des trains de sanctions pour le Liban et qu'il était prévu de le faire avant la réunion du 4 août, qu'il était prévu de trains de sanctions pour le Bélarus qui sont examinés, que la question de Chypre était à l'examen, qu'on avait aussi les problèmes dans la Corne de l'Afrique. Et donc, voilà, ma question c'est est-ce qu'on doit s'attendre, ou on peut s'attendre à une réunion extraordinaire des affaires étrangères avant la fin du mois compte tenu de l'urgence des situations, ou est-ce qu'on laisse passer l'été et on fait ça au mois de septembre? Donc c'est plutôt de l'intendance ma question que du point précis, puisque Nabila a répondu à David. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Christian. En effet, comme tu le sais, le haut représentant peut, s'il considère que c'est opportun, convoquer un Conseil des affaires étrangères. Pour l'instant, je ne vois rien de planifié. S'il y a quelque chose de planifié, je vous mettrai au courant. En ce qui concerne les sanctions dont tu as parlé, celles sur le Liban ou sur le Bélarus, tu sais très bien que les sanctions peuvent également être décidées ou adoptées par procédure écrite.
Merci beaucoup Nabila. Y a-t-il d'autres questions pour Nabila au sujet des Chypres? Ce n'est pas le cas, donc je passerai la parole à David, je pense.
Non, c'est sur l'accord États-Unis-Allemagne Nord Stream, donc c'est sur autre sujet.
Merci. Effectivement, c'est sur autre chose. So now, please raise your hands if you have other questions on Cyprus or on other foreign affairs matters that Nabila can take. Gregory, vas-y, go ahead.
International relations and on sanctions, because recently journalists discovered and published an investigation on how the equipment from a German company, Inge GmbH, was delivered to Russian-occupied Crimea in 2019, and it happened in violation of EU sanctions. And this equipment is now being used at electric plants in occupied annexed Crimea. We sent a request for a comment last week. As long as we didn't receive any reply yet, I want to ask if the Commission at all is aware of the situation when the EU companies manage to avoid the Crimea sanctions, and how does the Commission investigate such kind of events? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your question. This pertains to several angles, including one related to portfolios linked to financial services. So I wonder if this is at all on the radar of our colleagues dealing with this matter this week. So if Ariana has any comment to provide on this. Otherwise, we will get back to you bilaterally after we are checking the relevant information. Ariana.
Hi, indeed. Just to say that we had seen the question. We are in contact with the experts to get a reply, but we still don't have it. It's fully on my radar. We spoke a few times in the past days with the colleague that asked the question. So just to say that as soon as we have a reply, we will get back to him.
Yes, thank you very much, Ariana. Are there any additional foreign affairs questions today? David.
Oui, je ne sais pas très bien si c'est une question de politique étrangère ou pas, parce que c'est un accord entre les États-Unis d'Amérique et l'Allemagne sur le gazoduc de Nord Stream 2. Je voulais savoir si vous avez un commentaire par rapport à cet accord. Je voulais savoir si l'Union européenne, Conseil Affaires étrangères ou je sais pas quoi, ou la Commission ont été consultés. Et je voulais savoir si c'est normal qu'un accord entre un pays membre et un pays tiers prévoit des dispositions qui engagent l'Union européenne. Parce que dans le texte qui a été publié, plusieurs parties, aussi financières en termes de budget, on prévoit que c'est l'Union européenne qui doit intervenir, en particulier en soutien de l'Ukraine. Voilà, c'est les trois éléments sur lesquels je voulais avoir des éclaircissements de votre part. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, David. Là, c'est une question qui est en fait plus pour la compétence de Tim que pour la compétence de Nabila. J'offre bien évidemment la possibilité à Nabila de voir s'il y a un angle pour elle. Non, effectivement, donc j'inviterai Tim à t'apporter des éléments de réponse.
Hi, David. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I can offer you some general remarks on this statement. So, as you know, as we've said before, Nord Stream 2 is not a project of common European interest. Nevertheless, the Commission's objective has always been to ensure that Nord Stream 2, if built, should operate in a transparent and non-discriminatory way, with the appropriate degree of regulatory oversight and in line with international and EU energy law. Implementing the EU's energy policy is a matter for the EU and its member states. Since the entry into force of the amended EU Gas Directive in 2019, the EU has clear rules in place that apply to all pipelines, linking the European gas market to a third country, and which are designed to prevent preferential access. Furthermore, the Commission is closely following the transposition of the directive by member states, and in particular, Germany has notified complete transposition, which is relevant for Nord Stream 2. The Commission takes note of the statement by the governments of Germany and the United States and welcomes the strong commitment of Germany to abide by both the letter and the spirit of the third energy package with respect to Nord Stream 2. Ukraine is a reliable transit country, and the EU facilitated the current transit agreement that runs until 2024, based on EU energy rules applied in Ukraine, and we stand ready to facilitate discussions on a prolongation of this transit agreement. At the same time, we're working intensively with Ukraine to support its transition towards cleaner energy sources, such as wind and solar, for example, in line with the cooperation that we do with many countries around the world on the European Green Deal. As you say, EU energy policy is not only a national concern, it requires coordination with the EU and amongst member states. The Commission intends to discuss with the member states the details of the implementation of this agreement to ensure that any measures are well coordinated in line with the spirit of solidarity. And of course, we're happy to discuss this with other international partners too.
Thank you very much, Tim. I believe that David has a follow-up question first.
A quick one. Have you been consulted by the German government on this statement?
The sound broke down, but we believe that the word that you used was consulted. This is what I understood from your question. So,
yeah, I'm afraid, David, I have to admit, I need to double check with colleagues on that one, but I will come back to you as soon as possible.
Thank you, Tim. Any additional questions on this matter on Nord Stream 2? I see two hands up, and I assume that they are on this matter. So first, David, sorry.
David and David, thanks very much, Dana. If I could just ask about the Commission's reaction to the Ukrainian foreign minister who indicated last night he had sent a note that they're invoking an article in their political association agreement demanding, requesting consultations with the Commission and Germany on Nord Stream 2, the reaction to that, and also reaction to the foreign minister's implication that, in fact, in violation or not in the spirit of the association agreement, there has not been sufficient consultation or collaboration on pipeline infrastructure as seems to be called for. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Yeah, so in terms of the association agreement and the comment you have there, we don't have, we haven't seen a formal request of that, of course, but we do take note of the statements that have been made.
Indeed, as Tim said, we stand ready to discuss this matter with Ukraine. Any additional questions on this? Christian, je suppose que c'est à ce sujet. Vas-y.
Oui, je suis très intrigué par la manière dont vous traitez l'accord entre l'Allemagne et les États-Unis. C'est un accord qui pourrit les relations internationales depuis bientôt des années. Chaque État membre au niveau des ministres des Affaires étrangères a pris position pour ou contre ou neutralité. Là, on a un accord qui est conclu entre les États-Unis et l'Allemagne. On sait c'était sur des sanctions. Il fallait le régler. Je ne comprends pas pourquoi on renvoie ça au niveau technique. Tim, je suis désolé, c'est un problème d'affaires étrangères, ce truc-là. C'est pas un problème exclusivement pour dire que Nord Stream 2 n'est pas un projet d'intérêt européen. C'est tout le transit du gaz par l'Ukraine qui est considéré par là. C'est les relations entre l'UE et l'Ukraine et avec la Russie qui sont en compte. Je suis absolument halluciné par le fait que les affaires étrangères ne traitent absolument pas ce sujet et le laissent au niveau technique avec, franchement, une ligne qui est épaisse comme la ficelle d'un string. Là, j'avoue franchement que je n'arrive pas à comprendre. C'est quand même énorme ce qu'ils viennent de se faire. C'est l'Union européenne tout entière qui est considérée par ce sujet-là. C'est un sujet qui va monter aux affaires étrangères. Et vous nous dites, c'est pas un sujet d'intérêt général. C'est la ligne depuis 10 ans. Donc depuis que Nord Stream existe, c'est la même ligne, c'est pas un sujet d'intérêt. Alors dites-nous ce que c'est au niveau des affaires étrangères. Merci. Je suis désolé de m'emporter, mais là franchement, je comprends pas. C'est l'été, c'est la torpeur, mais franchement non.
Merci beaucoup, Christian. Et je suis contente de voir que la torpeur, ce n'est pas quelque chose qui te soit caractéristique à toi. Et merci beaucoup pour relancer cette question. Sois rassuré, quand on présente une ligne sur scène, ce n'est pas une ligne qui implique uniquement Tim, ça implique tous les aspects de cette politique qui ont été consultés, qui ont été mis ensemble. Et nous avons notre propre organisation qui détermine qui est la personne qui la présente sur scène. Mais chaque ligne que nous présentons étudie les questions techniques, les questions internes, les questions externes, les questions de voisinage, toutes les questions que tu viens d'évoquer. Donc la ligne telle qu'elle est implique effectivement la mise en accord de tous ces aspects. Deuxièmement, je prends note de ta préférence ou de ton commentaire que c'est une question éminemment d'affaires étrangères. Je dois dire que les questions de politique énergétique ont un aspect étranger ou un angle externe qui est très important. Et c'est pour cela que nous traitons de ce point de vue. Effectivement, les aspects énergie et notre politique d'énergie a un aspect interne et un aspect externe qui est très important. Et comme tu dis, ça a des impacts sur beaucoup d'autres politiques. Je tiens à te rappeler que Tim a bien dit que nous allons discuter cela avec les États membres et avec les pays voisins, avec l'Ukraine, et que ça sera l'objet des discussions qui auront lieu prochainement. Donc je pense que ça donne satisfaction à ta quête de réponse sur la manière dont nous traitons ces sujets, mais la ligne est telle que Tim te l'a présentée il y a quelques minutes. I believe that David has another question on this. Go ahead, David.
Oh, I just wondered if the note that the Ukrainian foreign minister said he had sent requesting consultations had not been received. Maybe that's a question for Nabila because it might go to the EEAS rather than.
At our knowledge, so far, before we started this midday briefing, it hasn't been received. But should that change, you will know from us. Cecilia. Do we have Cecilia on the line? You need to select the right mic source, and then we can give you the floor. Yes, it works.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, it does. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I have a question on border and Frontex. Austrian Interior Ministry wants to send some support for the border between Lithuania and Belarus.
Just allow me to interrupt you. because we were still at questions regarding Nord Stream. So if you do not mind, I will get back to you to take this question as soon as we have finished with the energy-related question, and in particular with Nord Stream 2, because I believe 2 additional colleagues have questions about that. So bear with us, I'll be back to you. In the meantime, David Careta.
Oui, excuse-moi si je reviens sur ma première question, et j'insiste un petit peu, parce que le texte qui a été publié hier engage en quelque sorte l'Union européenne à faire des choses envers l'Ukraine. Par exemple, dans le secteur énergétique, le budget européen a une contribution jusqu'à 1,77 milliard de dollars, si je comprends bien, pour l'Ukraine, etc. Je veux dire, je n'arrive pas à comprendre, et je crois que c'est une question vraiment politique. Je la pose à toi, Dana. Est-ce que c'est normal qu'un pays membre engage avec un pays tiers toute l'Union européenne? Je trouve ça assez impressionnant, parce que c'est l'Allemagne qui dit on va donner la garantie, l'Union européenne va faire certaines choses, même s'il n'y a pas eu de consultation. Donc c'est tous les contribuables européens qui vont payer pour résoudre un problème allemand. Est-ce que, au point de vue institutionnel, c'est normal?
Merci beaucoup, David. D'abord, sur l'accord entre l'Allemagne et l'Union européenne, comme Tim dit, nous prenons note et nous regardons les détails de près de cet accord politique qui a été annoncé hier. Deuxièmement, en ce qui concerne la possibilité d'engager des finances européennes, le budget européen, tu sais très bien quelle est la procédure pour engager les budgets européens. Nous avons un budget annuel où les dépenses sont clairement identifiées, qui est approuvé par nos institutions, qui est sujet à une proposition par la Commission et qui est approuvé par les co-législateurs, par l'autorité budgétaire de l'Union européenne. Donc tu sais très bien qu'un pays membre ne peut pas à lui-même engager des dépenses de l'Union européenne, du budget de l'Union européenne de cette manière-là. Mais sur l'aspect général des contributions que l'Union européenne pourrait avoir envers l'Ukraine, qui sont elles-mêmes sujets aux procédures que nous avons pour notre action étrangère et aux contributions nationales éventuelles vers l'Ukraine sous l'aspect équipe Europe. Nous allons discuter toutes ces choses-là, comme Tim vient de dire, avec les pays membres, avec l'Allemagne bien évidemment, mais avec les autres pays dans la série de consultations que nous allons lancer, comme Tim vient de l'expliquer. Mais juste pour clarifier, tu sais très bien quelle est la procédure budgétaire qui impliquerait des dépenses du budget européen, et ça passe effectivement par les autorités budgétaires de l'Union européenne. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions à ce sujet? Je pense que Lukáš. So, Lukáš, go ahead if your question is about this.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, all good, Lukáš. Go ahead.
Yes, the same topic, so Nord Stream. So your answer is really diplomatic on this matter, and actually you present the same line on that for many months. So is the reason for this because the chief of the European Commission is German, and she belongs to the political family in Germany which support the project? And my second question, actually, we never hear a personal opinion of Madame von der Leyen on the Nord Stream 2. What is her opinion actually about this project? Did she? I would like to know whether she supports Nord Stream. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question, Lukáš. I would invite you not to put together in one melting pot things which cannot be melted together. With regards to Germany and to the fact that the president happens to have the nationality or the citizenship of that country doesn't mean or doesn't make her take a position in relation to Nord Stream 2 in the sense in which you indicate. I just want to recall that the president did express at several instances, the latest such instances that I recall now spontaneously is the State of the Union speech of last September, where she basically did indicate that, pipelines, if I recall the quote correctly, it was that no pipeline can change the behavior of Russia. It would be improper for me to go beyond what the president said in relation to that last September, and this is the only thing that I can say in relation to the president's position on this. She doesn't have a specific position. Tim presented you the position of the whole Commission in relation to this matter. I hope that clarified, and unless there are additional questions on this, I will give the floor to Cecilia. Cecilia, go ahead.
Hello again.
Hi.
Hi. I would like to ask about the border situation between Lithuania and Belarus. Austria is sending supporting troops to the border. Can you tell me how is the situation there at the moment, and what does the Commission expect?
Thank you very much. It happens that the question is also for Tim, who's replacing Adalbert this week. So Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks very much, Dana. Thanks, Cecilia, for your question. I don't actually have any specific information about this announcement from Austria. I believe that was made in the minutes before midday, but we'll happily follow up. But more generally, what I can say is that according to our information, in 2021, over 2,000 people crossed the Lithuanian-Belarusian border irregularly, many of them children. And the EU, of course, stands ready to support Lithuania. Frontex and EASO have already started working on the ground. Frontex launched a rapid border intervention, and a new working arrangement was recently agreed with EASO. We can rapidly deploy further operational and financial assistance as required. The Lithuanian borders are European borders, and it's our shared responsibility to manage them together. This situation only underlines that we need a fair and effective European asylum and migration system that is able to respond to different situations and is equipped to provide protection for people in need, and is capable of managing migration in normal times, in times of pressure, and in times of crisis. This is what the Commission proposed under the new Pact on Migration and Asylum, which requires agreement as urgently as ever. So to achieve this, we're of course working with the Parliament and with the Slovenian Council presidency to take discussions forward.
Thank you very much. Tim, are there any additional questions on migration, in particular on the situation at that specific border, Lithuania's? I believe that Anne-Laure has a question about that. Anne-Laure, vas-y. Anne-Laure, you need to select the right mic source, I'm told, because we can't hear you for the moment. Still not working, so if you could try to select the right mic source. So we can't have Anne-Laure on the line. So then I will invite other colleagues to show their interest for asking other questions, and then we will go back to Anne-Laure at a later stage. Indeed, Thomas, go ahead.
Question on the interview the Hungarian foreign minister gave on the BBC with very personal insults against President von der Leyen. Just to remind you, he not only said that the report on the rule of law is based on fake news and lies, he also said that what the president said on Hungary is a shame. And apart from that, he also said it reminds him to what the Commission does. It reminds him to the 30 years ago to the communist dictatorship. And the BBC is preparing a worldwide campaign against Hungary. So is there any reaction by the Commission until now?
Thank you very much for your question, Thomas. So first of all, we remain very faithful to our habit of not entering into tit-for-tat discussions and not reacting to comments or to statements by anyone about us. And that will be our policy today as well. So we do not reply to any such comments. What I can tell you is that our position regarding the law in question in Hungary is very clear. We expressed it both at political level through our members of the college. The president herself expressed her position very clearly, as did several other members of the college. We did send a letter of a sort of more informal or political nature to raise our concerns in relation to that letter, and following the responses from the Hungarian government, we launched an infringement procedure in relation to this law last week on the 15th of July. So both at political and at legal level, we have made our concerns and our position with respect to that law very clear. And as I said, we are not entering into a soundbite exchange through the media about this. In relation to the report on Hungary, I think that there are two. We are very clear. We have put in that report, in that country chapter regarding Hungary, our concerns in relation to the rule of law situation in general. You had a press conference by the two responsible members of the college 2 days ago, where they answer questions about the situation in broader terms, and there is nothing else that we can add on that. I think that you have a follow-up question, Tomasz. Go ahead. You need to select the right mic source. We can't have you otherwise. I wonder if we can get Tomasz on the line. No, there is a problem with your mic source. So yes, I first try to get Tomasz. That's not possible. So then I will invite other colleagues to ask questions, if you have any, about Hungary and the respective law. I think that Isabelle in the room has a question about that. Vas-y, Isabelle.
Oui, merci. Je voulais savoir comment vous accueillez l'annonce par Viktor Orban d'un référendum sur la loi anti-LGBT, annonce qu'il a fait hier, si je ne m'abuse. Et il a à cette occasion enregistré une vidéo dans laquelle il dit Bruxelles nous menace, ce qui semble être la raison pour laquelle il déclenche ce référendum.
Merci beaucoup Isabelle. Je reprendrai avec la même stratégie ou la même position en tête. Nous ne répondons pas aux commentaires sur nos positions. Ce n'est pas le type de jeu auquel nous nous prêtons. Nous avons clairement dit ce que nous pensons politiquement et juridiquement au sujet de cette loi hongroise. Nous avons envoyé une lettre comme premier pas de notre procédure d'infraction la semaine dernière, le 15 juillet, et nous attendons la réponse officielle à cette lettre, comme c'est doit dans chaque procédure d'infraction, de la part du gouvernement hongrois. Pour le reste, nous ne nous mêlons pas des pas qui sont pris à l'intérieur d'un pays autour d'un processus législatif. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions à ce sujet? Je vois un certain nombre de mains qui sont levées, donc... But I just want to make sure that the questions are indeed about this. So Mathieu first.
Oui, bonjour. C'est lié à la question de l'état de droit et aussi à l'évaluation par la Commission du plan de relance de la Hongrie. Donc est-ce que une prolongation de l'examen a été suggérée aux autorités hongroises. Et je me réfère à une autre interview, celle du commissaire Renders à un média hongrois, selon lequel la Commission donc, demande à la Hongrie et à la Pologne d'adhérer au parquet européen, est-ce que c'est une condition qui est préalable à l'approbation des 2 plans de relance de ces 2 pays? Merci.
Merci beaucoup pour ta question, Mathieu. Ta question est effectivement liée à l'état des droits, mais elle est aussi liée au plan des relances nationales qui est plus pour vers là. Donc, je retournerai vers toi un peu plus tard, une fois qu'on a pris les autres questions qui seraient pour Tim sur des aspects purement rule of law en Hongrie. Donc, patience, je veux revenir vers toi dans quelques minutes. Entre-temps, je pense qu'il y a 3 autres questions pour Tim au sujet état des droits. So, Gabriela first, go ahead.
Indeed, a question on the rule of law in Hungary. Prime Minister Orban has announced the national referendum on children protection, so the latest law that includes discriminatory provisions anti the LGBT community. Can you tell us where the Commission stands vis-a-vis on democracy and sort of majoritarian rulings and the protections of minorities? Is it permissible to decree by a majority vote, for example, the national referendum, that it's okay to infringe on human rights, and especially of human rights of minority groups? Thank you.
Thank you. Tim, would you?
I'm not sure I would have much to add to what Dan has already said in terms of the referendum question. I mean, our legal position, our view on these topics has been made very clear, and the Commission doesn't dispute the right of protection of children. But we find that Hungary has failed to explain why the exposure of children to LGBTIQ content would be detrimental to their well-being, not in line with the best interest of the child, and we consider that it clearly discriminates against people based on their sexual orientation and goes against the fundamental values of the European Union, and that's why we've taken the measures which Dana has just referred to.
Indeed, thank you, Tim. Je pense que maintenant Christian, no, sorry, first Gabriela, I now see has a follow-up question. Go ahead, Gabriela.
Thank you, Dana. Tim, and thanks for what you said. I mean, would you be able to address the point that I'm asking? So, is it possible, is it allowed to decree by majoritarian majority decisions to discriminate against minority groups in EU member countries according to EU laws? Thanks.
Very much, Gabriela. Let me recall you how we deal with instances of discrimination. We have a number of instruments and tools that we can use in relation to such cases. And as we both said, both Tim and I, in the Commission's preliminary analysis, we have concerns regarding discrimination in relation to that law. And the tools that we have and we are using promptly is a legal one, that of launching an infringement procedure. So this is what we do in relation to that law adopted by the Hungarian government. Now we wait for the position of the Hungarian government to tell us, to answer to our concerns and to see what way forward we have. We cannot comment, and it wouldn't be proper for us to do so, on what tools a government uses in relation to its own lawmaking, which can include popular consultations or referenda of a different nature, and they set themselves the requirements at the national level in terms of using popular consultations and referenda in their own national lawmaking system. Our interlocutor in this is the Hungarian government, who will need to provide an answer to the concerns that we raised on the 15th of July in our letter of formal notice, and they have about 2 months to do so. So we look forward to having their reply to our concerns, and then we will see how we proceed further. But we have no comment to make as to how national governments adopt their laws and the process of lawmaking involving national consultations. Christian, je pense que ta question porte là-dessus aussi. Vas-y.
Oui, en fait, je voudrais revenir sur la question qu'a posée Isabelle Horry sur la décision de Viktor Orban de convoquer un référendum. Vu la tournure que cela prend, est-ce que vous n'avez pas une crainte au niveau de la Commission que ce référendum devienne, comme beaucoup de référendums, une consultation contre l'Europe, que le résultat sorte avec un non à l'Europe sur ces décisions qui affectent la manière de concevoir la société hongroise, qui relève en fait, comme le disent de plus en plus de gens, de la décision d'une politique nationale. Donc, est-ce que vous êtes inquiet par cette possibilité? Je sais bien que c'est une possibilité, que vous allez botter en touche comme d'habitude, mais cette possibilité que ce référendum, qui est une consultation sur un point précis, devienne un référendum anti-européen, un peu comme celui qui a conduit au Brexit avec les Britanniques. Merci.
Merci beaucoup pour ta question, Christian. Laisse-moi rappeler que nous avons une position très claire sur cette loi et que nous sommes engagés avec le gouvernement hongrois dans un processus, dans une procédure qui est une procédure juridique comme prévu par les traités. Quand nous avons des problèmes et que nous considérons que des principes ou les droits européens sont enfreints par la législation nationale, nous pouvons lancer des procédures d'infraction et c'est ce que nous avons fait. Donc ça te dit clairement que nous avons effectivement, que nous sommes déterminés à prendre position et à adresser cette question avec les autorités hongroises. Maintenant, les autorités hongroises, le gouvernement hongrois a décidé d'organiser un référendum là-dessus. C'est au gouvernement hongrois de déterminer la nature de ces référendums et d'informer les publics. Nous espérons de manière objective et de manière équilibrée sur les craintes que nous avons en relation avec cette minorité que nous pensons est au risque d'être discriminée par cette loi. Et nous espérons que toujours les informations équilibrées, objectives et la transparence vont prévaloir parce qu'il est très important que le public sache pourquoi nous avons des craintes en relation avec cette loi. Nous essayons nous-mêmes, à travers vous, de communiquer de manière claire et j'espère assez directe sur le problème que nous trouvons avec cette loi parce qu'effectivement, il est important que le public soit informé. Mais là, je ne veux pas spéculer sur le possible résultat d'un tel référendum et j'espère seulement que le public aura les informations appropriées pour faire son choix. Merci beaucoup. Je pense que maintenant, David Carretta a une question là-dessus. Vas-y, David.
Oui, merci Dana. Je vais te poser une question sur ce que M. Orban a dit, mais pas pour commenter ses déclarations, évidemment. Dans son message sur sa page Facebook, à un certain moment, il dit on a fait un référendum sur l'immigration en 2016, je crois. On a gagné, on va gagner encore une fois. Et en effet, il a gagné, dans le sens que la Commission a ouvert une procédure d'infraction sur les relocations. L'Hongrie a été condamnée, mais après, vous n'avez pas fait un pas supplémentaire. Juste la condamnation, les relocations, c'était fini, et voilà, on a oublié. On a à peu près la même chose sur un autre sujet, même s'il n'y a pas eu de référendum, c'est la question des universités. L'Hongrie a été condamnée pour sa loi. La Central European University a quitté Budapest. Et après la condamnation, Orban a fait une nouvelle loi en mettant sous contrôle à travers des fondations ces universités publiques. Bon, voilà, donc, est-ce qu'il y a un problème? Est-ce que vous voyez un problème dans le fait que vous ne réagissez pas avec suffisante force, même en demandant à la Cour des sanctions financières, comme ça pouvait être le cas pour les relocations? Et donc, à la fin, c'est M. Orban qui gagne.
Merci beaucoup, David. Je pense que ce que je peux dire par voie d'introduction est que nous ne voyons pas cela de manière binaire en termes de winners and losers ou en manière de zero-sum game, comme ils disent de manière si claire en anglais. Donc pour nous, ce qui est important est que les lois soient respectées pour que les droits des citoyens soient respectées et les opportunités que les traités donnent à tout le monde, que ce soit citoyen ou bien compagnie, ou bien dans les cas que tu as mentionné, la migration, que les droits des migrants soient respectés, évidemment. Donc, la seule conclusion que je peux tirer de tout ça est que nous agissons dans les limites de nos compétences. Et je pense que nous vous avons convaincu, ou nous avons montré clairement que nous n'hésitons pas à agir quand nous pensons qu'il y a la possibilité juridique de prendre action pour adresser un problème de mise en œuvre du droit communautaire ou du respect des principes de l'Union européenne. C'est pour cela que nous avons effectivement, comme tu dis, pris action sur dans un nombre de domaines. Tu as mentionné la migration lors de la crise migratoire de 2015-2016, mais maintenant, sur la discrimination, il y a 7 jours de cela. Donc nous agissons, David, et il est important pour nous que pour des sujets aussi importants comme les droits ou la non-discrimination des minorités, les choses soient claires et que nous voulons que nos droits et nos principes auxquels tout le monde a souscrit dans l'Union européenne soient respectés. Cela ne veut pas dire qu'il faut toujours aller vers l'avant avec les instruments maximalistes. Il faut voir qu'est-ce qui est comme plus utile comme instrument pour arriver à nos buts. Dans le cadre de la migration, puisque tu t'y réfères, nous avons proposé une refonte globale et équilibrée du système de migration, du système dont nous gérons la migration et l'asile dans l'Union européenne, avec les pactes, parce que nous reconnaissons qu'il y a beaucoup de problèmes ou des questions adjacentes que nous devons adresser en même temps et qu'il est plus utile et plus efficace au niveau de l'Union européenne de proposer une refonte plus large que de se concentrer uniquement par un instrument juridique pour adresser les problèmes de la relocalisation. J'espère que ça répond à ta question, mais nous essayons de travailler de manière globale, de manière constructive avec les États membres pour atteindre notre objectif qui est celui de s'assurer que les citoyens peuvent profiter des droits et des bénéfices de l'Union européenne. Je pense que maintenant, Thomas a une question là-dessus aussi. Thomas, vas-y.
Non, c'est un autre sujet, c'est la Suisse. Est-ce qu'on peut changer de sujet?
First, I am going to check that there are additional questions or no additional questions on this subject, on rule of law matters. That's not the case, so thank you very much, Tim. Yes, are there any additional questions for Tim on other matters that he covers in relation to the Green Deal? Yes, from Adalbert's perspective and from Christian's perspective, COVID certificate. Thank you for your offer, Tim. Yes, Oliver has one. Go ahead, Oliver.
Hi, another great day for the Geopolitical Commission. Anyway, for something completely different, can you remind us who is in charge of enforcing the control of the EU COVID certificate? Is it airport operators? Is it airlines? Is it the border police? Who's in charge of doing this, and who is in charge of making sure it is actually being done at the borders, at the airports, and so forth?
Thank you very much, Oliver. So this pertains to the national implementation, actually, of our rules in relation to the COVID certificate, and I
through my notes.
Tim is trying to get the information for you in his very long package.
I will come back to the podium in a couple of minutes and do that if that's okay. Just fine.
So he will recover the information from his files and he will reply to you on this, but it strikes me as being strictly linked to the national implementation of the certificate, and the member states can, of course, identify themselves the responsible authorities in order to perform the checks on the European certificate. But in addition to this principal answer, Tim is fishing out any additional information that he could have for you. So additional questions for Tim on the vast portfolio that he covers this week, replacing his colleagues. So please keep your hand up. Sorry.
The one from Anne-Laure is in the chat on the Lithuanian
Indeed. So we
asylum
have
measures.
a question from Anne-Laure who couldn't connect to ask her question herself. And it is about the, so I read Anne-Laure's question about the Lithuanian law. Je vais la lire en français puisqu'elle est posée en français. Donc Anne-Laure aimerait poser une question sur la loi lituanienne restreignant les droits des demandeurs d'asile à la suite des arrivées des migrants à la frontière avec le Bélarus. Accélération du traitement des demandes, durcissement du processus d'appel contre les rejets de la demande d'asile. Donc c'était la question de Anne-Laure.
Ce sujet, Anne-Laure, pour l'instant, nous n'avons pas reçu de notification des autorités lituaniennes en ce qui concerne les amendements aux droits d'asile. Nous attendons cette notification et dès qu'on le reçoit, on va faire l'analyse nécessaire.
Merci beaucoup, Tim. I see that Oliver has a follow-up question. Go ahead, Oliver. A follow-up on the European COVID certificate.
Yes, I'm asking this question because I'm wondering if the European Commission is aware of the fact that not even 15 kilometers from where you're standing now physically at the Zaventem airport, the Brussels International Airport, the certificate is not being controlled systematically. If you, for example, take a flight to Poland with the airline LOT, you will present a piece of ID to get your boarding pass. And even if you ask yourself if they would have a look at your certificate, the personnel there will tell you no, because LOT hasn't asked us to do this, because the Polish government apparently doesn't ask LOT to do this. So basically you can get on a plane to Warsaw and then maybe also on to Tallinn, because LOT offers connecting flights to the Estonian capital as well, to people who are actually not checked, who might carry the virus and who might spread it around in Europe. So my question to you is, and I'm asking the Commission, because you and especially President von der Leyen took a lot of credit for getting the certificate done, but you apparently do not seem to want to take credit for the way it is actually being used. And simply saying the member states are only in charge of it is not satisfactory, as we are currently stumbling into the fourth wave and another season of horror with this virus. So please give us a bit more of a political answer to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and this is what I'm extremely happy to do, Oliver. So let us recall why we have this EU COVID certificate. We have it because it was important for us as Europe started opening to have a set of rules which make life easier for Europeans as they cross borders. And this was the reason why we proposed, and we were very happy to see that member states managed to agree on our proposal with the European Parliament in record time to have a certificate which is recognized everywhere around the EU. You know very well the conditions and you know very well why we are doing it and what is the aim of the certificate and what are the obligations of the member states. Member states have the obligation indeed to recognize it. And we have a differentiation regarding the type of vaccines which are indicated there, in relation to which member states, of course, have to accept for every vaccine which is authorized by the European Medicines Agency procedure. And they have the possibility of recognizing it for the vaccines which are not covered by the EMA-led procedure. But we never aimed to harmonize completely the uses for which the certificate will be used at the national level. This is something which member states do, and it's also for the member states to implement the logistics of checks of the certificate in the best way that they think appropriate. Now, in addition to that, because you mentioned the risk of infection, of course, of spreading the virus, of course, it's very important to continue to stay very vigilant. And member states take responsibility themselves for ensuring any control measures or any other appropriate epidemiological measures to reduce the spread of the virus. It's very important that they keep this in mind as we keep on repeating at every single opportunity that we have. Indeed, vaccination rates are raising, and they are raising very fast, and this is the good news, because more vaccinated people means less viruses spread around Europe, but we are not in a position to answer how the verification is done at every single border in relation to any specific airline company. I think this has exhausted the questions for Tim. No, there is a follow-up from Oliver, because I would also want to give the opportunity to Stefan to follow up on measures in relation to limiting the spread of the virus, since that was an important angle of your question as well. So please voice your follow-up, and then I will invite Stefan to provide additional elements. Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Dana. Sorry to be a pain in the back. But basically what you're saying is you set up a system that looks really awesome on paper, but that is not, as we see now, with rising infection rates by travelers coming home, effective in stopping the even quicker increase in infections all over Europe. So that is a huge problem, and it's a political problem that might fall back on the president. And secondly, because we talk about measures to stop the virus, mask wearing and so forth. I saw pictures on Twitter published by Commissioner Hahn, who is currently in Milano. You can see them all. And he's in a beautiful old conference room sitting with, I think, the mayor of Milan and plenty of other dignitaries. And the only person there wearing a mask is, I think, the official guarding the door, opening or closing the door. So my question is, since we're all actually asked to keep our masks on, and it's a good idea to keep the mask on indoors, how seriously is the Commission taking its role as a role model in making sure that everyone follows these rules? Because as I said, we're stumbling into the fourth wave, and I don't know what's going to come after the fourth wave, the fifth one or the sixth or whatever, regardless of how many people are vaccinated today or tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Oliver. This goes more into the territory of the epidemiological situation. So I will first free Tim, because I will need Stefan on stage to provide you updates on these things. Allow me to say that in relation to following the rules with respect to social distancing or the wearing of masks in indoors or in public spaces as appropriate, depending on the local rules in force, the Commission is extremely strict. We are enforcing the rules ourselves in a very clear way when we organize our meetings. You were referring to a tweet from a commissioner attending an external meeting somewhere else. Obviously, that would be done under the rules of the host country or local authority. So we cannot comment, and I wouldn't be able to do so, on the rules which apply to the people meeting in that space that you refer to. So this would rather be a question for those authorities to see if the rules in relation to indoor mask wearing were respected or not. In relation to the spreading of the virus and how serious the Commission is in taking sort of measures or warning or doing all what it can to reduce the flow of infections, well, allow me to give the floor to Stefan, who is also going to refer to a complement of information in relation to the COVID certificate, in relation to how it's being implemented by airlines.
Indeed, thank you very much, Dana. Thank you also for the question, Oliver. You referred in your question to the Zaventem airport and to practices in different airports. Allow me to draw your attention to the fact that the Commission has just adopted guidelines on exactly how to check the digital certificate in the context of aviation and air travel, and what roles could be played by the different actors in this area, the aviation companies, the airline companies, and the airports. You'll find in these guidelines, you'll find reference to these guidelines in our daily news, and you'll see that one of the recommendations is that member states should try to ensure that the digital certificate is carried, the verification of the certificate is carried out as early as possible and preferably before the passenger arrives at the departure airport. So there's a set of very concrete recommendations to the different member states, to the different actors, taking into account the fact that we have very different approaches in the member states, of course. And the objective of these guidelines is on the one hand to make sure that we continue to struggle again, that continue our fight against this virus. The fight is not over, whilst at the same time trying to ensure a smooth, free movement of our travelers at airports using airline companies. That's one thing. Second, with regard to the different measures that are in place, the non-pharmaceutical interventions, as we call them, such as mask wearing, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that the ECDC has issued already some time ago very interesting guidelines and guidance on these measures, also following successful vaccination, and it has identified several steps and made several recommendations as to how to translate a situation of increased full vaccination into the adoption of the appropriate non-pharmaceutical measures, such as mask wearing. And of course, as we've already said several times here on the podium, it's very important that we follow a scientific approach here, a scientific approach developed, among others, by the ECDC. And so first, it's very important that we continue to follow that road. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stefan, I see that there are additional questions which could be relevant for you. In particular, a question from Catherine on vaccination. And Catherine has been waiting for a long time. Go ahead, Catherine.
Hello. Hi. Hi. So the ECDC published a table of vaccine uptake, and we still see that there is a very low rate of uptake in countries like Romania and Bulgaria compared to other EU countries. And I realized that Commissioner Kyriakides was in Bulgaria and had an update, some weeks ago now. I'm just wondering, do you have any explanation for this? And I understand that it's principally the responsibility for each member state, how it carries out its rollout, vaccine rollout, but it's obviously worrying that the uptake level is so low. And also in countries like Croatia, which are very popular holiday destinations, we see that the level of vaccination for one dose is only at 47%. So I'm just wondering if you could give us an update of if the Commission at the EU level, there's anything being done to reach out to countries that seem to be having difficulties with their rollout and see if there's anything that can be done to help countries. Thanks.
Sure, Stefan.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm not in a position, of course, to give comments on individual member states. You know what our target is. We want to ensure that 70% of the adult population is vaccinated. And you also know that we have delivered a sufficient number of doses to the member states to make sure that member states can indeed reach this target. This being said, it is very important that member states, as soon as they receive the doses, that they also administer the doses. So that's very important, and this is something the Commission has been calling for quite some time, and it remains, of course, very important because the full vaccination is the best way out of this virus and its variants. The Commissioner Kyriakides has indeed visited several member states, including member states where the vaccination rates are lower than in other member states. She has discussed the situation, obviously, with the authorities there, has discussed possible ways of support. Such support can take several forms. As you know, the Commission is supporting different member states with the communication and information materials, trying to make sure that this information, good communication, can be passed to the different citizens, because as you know, it's important that we fight vaccine hesitancy, and the best way to do that is to build trust with the European citizens, showing on the basis of scientific hard evidence that vaccination is the best way out. And this is one of the areas where we support member states. We also support member states, I would say logistically, by helping them with the purchase of, for instance, needles and syringes, which can be purchased through our joint procurement. So there are several steps which are taken to help these member states. All member states. This being said, of course, low vaccination rates are an element of concern, and we have to do everything we can to make sure that sufficiently high numbers of people are vaccinated and that we reach, together with the member states, the target of 70%. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any additional questions for Stefan on vaccination or COVID-related matters? So please only keep your hand up if your question is about that. Angela.
Yes, thanks for the floor. I have problems with my camera, so I apologize for this. I wanted to know, do you think that the Green Pass can resist the fourth wave? I mean, what happens if member states who have the possibility to decide more measures and more restrictions, as you say, what happens if they decide to ask for anti-COVID tests even to vaccinated people with the Green Pass? Can they do it? Because, I mean, the situation looks quite worrying. So I don't know if you share also this worry. Thank you.
Thank you. Stefan?
Thank you very much. I think the purpose of our digital certificate is twofold. On the one hand, to ensure that we can allow free movement of people in the European Union. This is extremely important. Also for the economic life, it's important that we can continue this free movement. On the other hand, we have to make sure that all the progress that we have reached through our vaccination, that it doesn't get undone by too uncareful practices. And this digital certificate, a medical document, helps exactly doing that. And so we think it's a very important step to reach these two objectives. Of course, it's very difficult to look into the future and see what are the next waves that are coming. We have the ECDC, which is closely monitoring the situation. We continuously call for the importance of continuing the full vaccination to reach the 70% target of the adult population. And this is what all our work is focused on. With regard to requesting tests or not, you know that we have our system of the certificate. Normally, the recommendation that has been adopted with the full approval of all the member states clearly says that when a traveler has been vaccinated with one of the EMA-approved vaccines, then the member states to which this person goes, of course, should respect this full vaccination. And this is one of the tools, one of the instruments that has been developed to make sure that this free movement can happen fluently without putting into danger the progress we've made in the area of public health. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stefan, are there any additional questions for Stefan on vaccination or COVID-related matters? Yes, there are a few. So Tommaso first, go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for the floor. Tommaso Gallavotti in Kronos, Italy. It's just a question on vaccines because I have read that the EMA has started the rolling review on the anti-COVID vaccine developed by Sanofi Pasteur. I wonder how this fit into your strategy because it was the second contract you signed, but the Commission has, in the meantime, expressed a clear preference for mRNA vaccines. So may you please elaborate a bit on how this fits into your vaccine strategy? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I think there are several elements. To start with, we have always defended a portfolio approach. From the beginning, we said it's important that we develop vaccines with different companies using different technologies. That's the best way to make sure that we develop one or more, even more successful vaccines, and this portfolio approach has proven to be extremely successful. That's one thing. Second, we are not here in the business of saying that one vaccine is better than the other. That is not the case. All the vaccines that are being administered now are vaccines that went through a very thorough assessment by EMA. They're all effective, they're all safe, and they're all good vaccines that help us tackling this virus. I again refer to what EMA has communicated recently again, that a double vaccination of any of the 4 vaccines that have already approved is the best way out, also in our fight against the variants. Thirdly, I would also like to refer to the fact that our vaccine strategy it has not been developed on ivory tower. It is part of our global strategy of global solidarity. The vaccines that we have approved that are being produced here are also vaccines that are there to help the world, because as long as the virus is out there in the world, we are not safe. And so you should also see the development of vaccines, and the importance of developing a broad portfolio of many vaccines is our way to respond to the global needs that exist in this area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Are there any additional questions for Stefan on vaccines, vaccination? Samuel.
Bonjour Stéphane, est-ce que tu m'entends?
Merci.
Oui, ma question concerne votre bataille juridique avec AstraZeneca, et j'aimerais savoir si sur les 15 millions de doses que la compagnie devait vous livrer d'ici au 26 juillet à 9h du matin, d'après le calendrier contraignant décidé par la Cour, est-ce que vous pouvez nous dire combien vous en avez reçu déjà, et si certaines des doses qui ont été envoyées provenaient des usines britanniques de l'entreprise? Merci.
Merci beaucoup pour cette question, Samuel. Le tribunal a dit plusieurs choses. D'une part, le tribunal a dit que la société devait livrer 30 millions de doses en plus. Deuxièmement, le tribunal a également dit que les livraisons devraient avoir lieu sur base des principes contractuels. Et ces principes étaient très clairs. Le tribunal nous a donné raison sur ce point, certainement. Un de ces principes contractuels, c'est le fait que la société doit utiliser les usines, aussi les usines en Royaume-Uni, si cela s'avère nécessaire pour pouvoir respecter ses obligations à l'égard de la Commission. En ce qui concerne le nombre de doses, nous avons reçu 100 millions de doses de la société jusqu'à présent. Donc ça inclut la livraison de doses pour le premier et pour le deuxième trimestre. Évidemment, la société doit continuer à livrer des doses sur base de ces principes contractuels. Et comme tu le sais, le tribunal a indiqué que ces livraisons doivent avoir lieu et que à la session, à l'audience plutôt devant le tribunal qui va avoir lieu au mois de septembre, le tribunal va vérifier dans quelle mesure la société a respecté les obligations telles qu'elles ont été soulignées par le tribunal dans sa décision du mois de juin. Donc, on verra devant le tribunal et pendant l'audience du 24 et du 29 septembre, on verra si la société a bien rempli ses obligations à l'égard de la Commission, parce que c'est une obligation qui continue à être valable et nous nous attendons du côté de la Commission et des États membres à ce que la société continue à bien livrer ses doses sur base de ces principes contractuels. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Samuel a une question de suivi. Vas-y, Samuel.
Il me semble que la Cour avait décrété que AstraZeneca devait les livrer de manière urgente 50 millions de doses d'ici le 27 septembre. Et sur ces 50, il devait y en avoir 15 millions d'ici au 26 juillet à 9h. Est-ce que sur les 15 millions qui devaient être versés à cette date, est-ce que vous en avez déjà reçu?
Je pense, Samuel, que ce n'est pas tout à fait ça que le tribunal a décidé. Le tribunal a donné la société... il faut que je vérifie les dates, mais a donné certaines dates auxquelles la société doit livrer ce nombre de doses. Nous continuons à suivre cela, évidemment. Et encore une fois, ce sera au tribunal, à l'audience de 24 et 29 septembre, de vérifier dans quelle mesure ces obligations ont été remplies. Comme je viens de le dire, la société a livré 100 millions de doses, mais le contrat reste en vigueur. Il y a encore toute une série de doses qui doivent être livrées. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Et je pense que finalement, Christian, il a aussi une question pour Stéphane. Christian, vas-y.
Oui, en fait, j'ai deux questions. La première, c'est sur les 70% de la population adulte. Je voudrais savoir, Stéphane, et comprendre si on a des problèmes avec un certain nombre de pays qui sont en retard dans la campagne de vaccination. Je pense notamment à la Croatie, qui est un grand pays, une grande destination touristique actuellement. Est-ce que ça ne va pas déstabiliser de dire qu'effectivement on a les 70%, mais avec un certain nombre de pays qui auront supporté l'essentiel de l'effort et d'autres qui seront très en retard. Et effectivement, on parle bien de 2 doses. L'exemple de Xavier Bettel, le Premier ministre du Luxembourg, qui a contracté le Covid dans une forme assez sérieuse entre la première et la deuxième dose, montre qu'effectivement, on est vulnérable à ce niveau-là. Donc, je voudrais savoir où est-ce que vous en êtes avec les 70% et si vous n'avez pas peur que tout soit déstabilisé parce que des destinations touristiques comme la Croatie, qui vont accueillir des gens, ne sont pas du tout au niveau de la campagne de vaccination. Ma deuxième question, c'était une question un peu explicative. C'est sur le certificat numérique, parce que c'est vrai qu'il pose beaucoup de questions. Il est entré en application, les gens ne comprennent pas très bien. Moi-même, parfois, j'ai des doutes pour expliquer la portée, qu'est-ce qui rentre dedans. Est-ce que les États membres peuvent, en période de grave crise dans une région, je pense à la Catalogne par exemple, imposer à des titulaires d'un passeport sanitaire qui ont les deux vaccinations à jour, un test obligatoire pour rentrer ou pas du tout? Merci.
Voilà, donc d'abord sur les vaccinations.
En effet, merci beaucoup Christian. Tu as bien raison, on parle de 2 doses. Et encore une fois, nous avons livré un nombre suffisamment de doses pour assurer l'administration de 2 doses par personne, donc d'avoir la full vaccination, la vaccination complète, je dirais, à l'exception évidemment des doses de vaccin pour lesquelles il suffit d'avoir une seule dose. Mais donc on a livré suffisamment de doses. À ce stade-ci, nous avons atteint déjà 50%, donc 50% de la population adulte a déjà reçu la vaccination complète. Donc ça, c'est une très bonne nouvelle, je dirais. On est sur le bon chemin. Ceci étant dit, on n'y est pas encore. Il est vrai, on doit encore atteindre les 70% de la population adulte et nous travaillons là-dessus avec tous les États membres. Il est clair que c'est un engagement pour toute l'Union européenne, donc il est très important que tous les États membres puissent atteindre ce target, parce qu'aussi longtemps qu'un ou plusieurs États membres n'y sont pas, on n'y est pas encore. Donc on doit faire ce travail ensemble, et c'est justement pour cette raison-là que la commissaire Kyriakides a visité plusieurs États membres pour voir dans quelle mesure elle peut donner un soutien, et ça reste évidemment un point prioritaire pour nous pour les prochaines semaines et mois. Merci.
Et juste pour ajouter un complément d'information, d'après les derniers chiffres que nous venons d'avoir, jusqu'à aujourd'hui, il y a eu 200 millions de personnes qui sont vaccinées complètement dans l'Union européenne. Donc ça nous fait en fait un pourcentage de 54,7% d'adultes qui sont complètement vaccinés, donc 2 doses ou bien une dose dans les cas du vaccin produit par Johnson & Johnson. Et nous avons 68,4% des adultes dans l'Union européenne qui ont déjà eu leur première dose. Donc, comme Stéphane dit, on fait des progrès très tangibles. Nous sommes maintenant parmi les parties du monde qui ont vacciné les plus. Mais effectivement, il est important que ce progrès soit reparti de manière plus équilibrée pour qu'il n'y ait pas des îlots où les virus puissent se propager et muter. La deuxième question sur les certificats. Si les États membres peuvent introduire des mesures, des tests au retour des vacances pour des personnes qui ont déjà des certificats.
Je vais peut-être devoir revenir là-dessus, mais ma compréhension de la situation, c'est que, je ne parle maintenant pas du emergency break lorsqu'il s'agit de situations épidémiologiques spécifiques qui peuvent se présenter, mais normalement, le but du digital certificate, le certificat digital, c'est que lorsque un travailleur peut démontrer sur son certificat qu'il ou elle a été vacciné, qu'elle a eu double vaccination même, que ceci est un élément suffisant pour permettre l'entrée dans l'autre État membre. C'est un principe important de la recommandation du Conseil, et donc ça a été introduit justement pour permettre d'une part la fluidité, je dirais, de la libre circulation des personnes, et en même temps en garantissant que la santé publique, tellement important, reste maintenue. Merci.
Merci beaucoup Stéphane. Je pense que cela épuise les questions pour Stéphane, sauf si Simona a une question pour Stéphane. So Simona, is your question for Stefan in relation to COVID or other measures that he covers? If that's the case, please keep your hand up. If it's not the case, please put it down. I understand it is, so go ahead, Simona.
Yes, thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes, we do. Go ahead.
Yes, we do. Yes, thank you. Yes, I would also like to go back to this statistic, the data that from ECDC. And we see on this chart that Slovenia is among member states that where adult population or there is less than 50% people that received at least one dose. So I was wondering if Commissioner Kyriakides, which was touring these last weeks in certain member states, is the commissioner also planning to visit or to be in contact with Slovenian authorities about this issue, about this question about vaccination rate? Thank you.
Fun.
Thank you very much for this. I cannot give you the actual list of member states that are still planned to be visited, but it goes without saying that there is a very important interest in the state of play of the vaccination in the different member states, and this is then obviously the main topic, I would say, of discussions between the Commissioner and her counterparts in the different member states, and then to see also how the Commission can offer any support there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now open the floor to other type of questions, unless Jennifer's question is for Stefan. So if that's the case, please keep your hand up, Jennifer. That is not the case, so I imagine that I can free Stefan. Thank you very much, Stefan. So I will now go back to Mathieu, if he's still connected, because he has been waiting for a very long time for an answer on the question regarding national recovery plans. So if Mathieu is still connected, which he is, yes, you have the floor, Mathieu.
I am 30 minutes plus tard, j'ai cru que mon estomac n'allait plus tenir le coup. Mais on a parlé vaccination, on a parlé migration, mais on a oublié le lien entre état de droit et plan de relance. Donc je repose ma question. Est-ce que la Commission a demandé aux autorités hongroises s'ils voulaient un délai supplémentaire pour l'analyse de leur plan national? Et surtout en référence à l'interview du commissaire Renders, dans lequel il demande à la Hongrie et à la Pologne d'adhérer au parquet européen. Est-ce que pour la Commission, vous en faites une condition préalable à l'approbation par la Commission de leurs deux plans de relance?
Thank you. Perle.
Merci beaucoup Mathieu pour votre patience. Donc je peux vous dire qu'effectivement la Commission n'a pas encore terminé son évaluation du plan hongrois pour la reprise et la résilience. Donc la Commission poursuit son évaluation et nous continuons à avoir des échanges constructifs avec les autorités hongroises dans ce contexte. Il est trop tôt en ce moment de déterminer les prochaines étapes immédiates dans ce processus. C'est clairement notre objectif de compléter l'évaluation du plan le plus vite possible. Mais je peux aussi vous confirmer qu'à ce jour, nous n'avons pas convenu d'une extension du délai de l'évaluation. Et par rapport à votre deuxième question, donc là, notre réponse est effectivement que l'évaluation d'un côté du plan pour la reprise et la résilience hongrois et les procédures d'infraction que Dana a décrit dans les détails aujourd'hui, ce sont deux processus distincts et parallèles. Donc la Commission poursuit son évaluation du plan pour la reprise et la relance et en même temps, nous poursuivons pleinement les procédures d'infraction.
Merci beaucoup Perle. Je pense que Mathieu a une question de suivi. Vas-y Mathieu.
Je connais votre position sur
la question des infractions, mais l'adhésion au parquet européen n'a rien à voir. C'est pas du tout un contentieux auprès de la Cour. Donc, d'où vient cette affirmation du commissaire Reynders et quel lien faites-vous avec les plans de relance?
Ah non. Donc effectivement, c'est une autre question. Et donc par rapport au the European Public Prosecutor's Office, donc je pense que là, ce qui est important, c'est de souligner que la Commission accueille le fait qu'il y a un working arrangement avec, si je peux le dire, de General Public Prosecutor Office de la Hongrie. Donc ça, c'est notre réponse par rapport à votre question.
Merci beaucoup. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions au sujet du plan hongrois? Katalin, I think you want to ask about that, so go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Donna. This is a short question about the Hungarian recovery plan. I understand that there is no agreement about the extension of the deadline, but taking into account that the Commission will not hold a meeting until the end of August, most probably, how and who will decide about offering an extension of the negotiations? So could you please shed a light on the procedure in this case? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your question. So the procedure is that indeed both the Commission and the Member State in question need to agree on a possible extension. This is what is foreseen in Article 19 of the Recovery and Resilience Regulation. So this is the procedure.
Thank you very much, Verle. And I just want to recall to Katalin that we have a flexible decision-making system, so if a decision will need to be taken over the summer on any matter, this will always be made possible through our own decision-making system or the Commission, should such a decision be required on any matter, not just this specifically. Thank you so much. I think we exhausted the questions for Verla, unless David has a question for her. So David, David, is the question for Verla or not? It is not, because you dropped your hand. Very good, so thank you very much. Now I will give the floor to Tomasz Miglerina, who's been waiting for a long time.
Oui, merci. Et j'ajouterais qu'il y aurait une question britannique à faire, mais comme il y a Jennifer qui s'est mise dans la liste, je pense qu'on a la même question, donc je me limite à ma question suisse. Est-ce que la présidente de la Commission a l'intention de se dessaisir du dossier suisse et le confier à un commissaire, comme le ministre des Affaires étrangères suisse nous a dit d'avoir demandé mardi après-midi? Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Thomas. Je n'ai aucune annonce à faire sur la responsabilité du dossier suisse au sein de la Commission, donc les choses restent telles que tu les connais. Et effectivement, tu as introduit toi-même, Isabelle, ici, présente dans la salle, a une question de suivi. Vas-y, Isabelle.
Ça marche pas. C'est une question sur la Suisse, mais elle n'est pas directement liée à ça. Tout à l'heure, Sonia a fait des annonces sur ERA. Et entre-temps, j'ai regardé sur les 11 dossiers, projets qui ont été présélectionnés. 2 sont des projets qui sont dirigés par des acteurs suisses de la recherche. Et je ne comprends pas, parce que je croyais que la Suisse avait été rétrogradée, n'avait plus que le statut de pays tiers pour Horizon Europe et ne pouvait donc pas coordonner de projets de recherche. Donc je voulais savoir comment c'était possible. Et deuxièmement, je voulais savoir si vous aviez un commentaire, parce que comme la Suisse est un peu mise de côté dans la recherche, de ce qu'on a compris, ça fait quand même 2 projets sur 11 par rapport à tous les États membres de l'Union européenne. Et est-ce que c'est peut-être un indice que c'est important de garder la Suisse de façon associée à Horizon Europe? Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Isabelle. Sonia.
Merci beaucoup, Isabelle, pour ta question. Ce que je peux dire est que les participations des pays qui sont associés et des pays tiers dans les projets spécifiques qui sont financés par Horizon Europe est déterminée par la nature du projet. Alors, il y a l'article 22.5 qui détermine participation. Ça veut dire sur quelles conditions on peut restreindre l'accès des compagnies ou des organisations de recherche des pays tiers ou des pays associés aux projets qui sont financés par le programme. Et ces raisons sont par exemple la sécurité nationale, aussi la sécurité de l'Union européenne et aussi d'autres domaines qui sont plus sensibles pour l'Union. Mais ce n'est pas une restriction qui est générale. C'est vraiment cas par cas et projet par projet.
Merci beaucoup. Isabelle?
Pardon, mais le statut de pays tiers, ça n'empêche pas d'office de coordonner un projet. C'est ce qui est écrit dans les textes. On ne peut pas coordonner un projet quand on est juste pays tiers. Quand on est associé, on peut, mais là, il y a des choses que je ne comprends pas.
À ce stade-là, je n'ai pas quelque chose à ajouter à ce que j'ai déjà dit. Je vais me renseigner plus en détail sur ta question et je vais revenir avec toi en bilatéral.
Merci beaucoup, Sonia. Je vais donner maintenant la parole à David, who had his hand up. David, are you still around?
I wanted to switch topics to the UK, if that's possible. And it was just a general question about whether, in fact, to catch us up, it's the EU's, the Commission's position that, in fact, the UK is in violation of the Northern Ireland Protocol, and what, if any, legal steps are envisioned in light of the Vice President Šefčovič's statement yesterday that there's no renegotiation of the protocol planned.
Very much. I will give the floor to Ariana to provide an answer on the status of relations with the UK.
Hi, David. So as you know, in March, we have sent a letter of formal notice to the United Kingdom for breaching substantive provisions of the Protocol of Ireland and Northern Ireland, as well as the good faith obligation under the withdrawal agreement. This is the beginning of an infringement process against the United Kingdom, and the United Kingdom, had time to 6 months to set the breach of international law. I do not have updates on this. We did send this letter in March, and this is where we stand. There's no news on this side. As a separate topic, I would get back to you on your other question that relates to yesterday's announcements made by the United Kingdom concerning the protocol. There, I would refer to you to the statement that we have published from Vice President Šefčovič. As he has said, the protocol is a joint solution that we have found with Prime Minister Johnson and David Frost that was ratified by the UK Parliament to address the very specific challenges of Brexit and of the Brexit that the British government has chosen, and the issues that this poses for the island of Ireland. It is the means that we have to protect the Good Friday Agreement, maintaining peace and stability in Northern Ireland and avoiding a hard border of Ireland. It's always important to recall what the protocol aims at. We have sought to be flexible with practical solutions, and there I would refer you to the package that we have tabled on 30th of June for measures to address certain specific issues that the protocol was posing for Northern Ireland. These solutions were brought about with the purpose of benefiting the people of Northern Ireland. Of course, we have taken note of the statement made by Frost yesterday, and we will continue to engage with the UK in the appropriate, places for discussion set in the withdrawal agreement. Vice President Šefčovič does look forward to speak to David Frost. However, we are ready to continue to seek creative solutions within the framework of the protocol in the interest of all communities in Northern Ireland, but we will not agree to a renegotiation of the protocol.
Ariana, I think that David has a follow-up question.
I guess just as we've been listening so attentively to the midday, the UK government has put out a readout of a call between the Commission President and the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. I wonder, Dana, if you're going to put out a similar readout, and if the President had conveyed to Mr. Johnson that, in fact, the Northern Ireland Protocol was the one that he requested and that he, in fact, negotiated. Thanks.
Thank you very much, David. indeed, we have put out our readout of the phone conversation which took place just before we started midday between President von der Leyen and the Prime Minister Johnson. So the President tweeted about that phone conversation, and I refer you to her tweet. The President listened to the explanation provided by Boris Johnson, who presented the UK comment paper on the Northern Irish Protocol, which was presented yesterday by the UK, and the President conveyed the message that the EU will continue to be creative and flexible within the protocol framework. And she reconveyed the message that we will not renegotiate the protocol because it is our responsibility to ensure together stability and predictability in Northern Ireland. So I refer you to the President's tweet on that matter. I believe that Jennifer has a question about this as well. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Yes, you can hear me?
All is good. Go ahead.
All is good. Indeed, yes, indeed. And as Thomas predicted, I do have a question on the UK, and it was on President von der Leyen's tweet. You've set out what was discussed in the call, but can you give us a sense of the tone between the two, the tone of the conversation, and also how long did they speak for? And then secondly, did President von der Leyen discuss the UK when she met President Macron yesterday? And thirdly, can you set out what the next steps are in EU-UK meetings? Do you expect any technical talks over the summer? Do you expect talks between Vice President Šefčovič and Lord Frost? How do you see the talks proceeding over the next few weeks? Thank you.
I would not venture into giving any attribute or qualifying the tone of the call between the President and the Prime Minister. As I said, the President listened to the explanations provided by the UK Prime Minister, who requested this call to present his position and to explain the latest UK position on the protocol as published yesterday. And the President said in very clear terms what the tweet recalls or sums up, that we will continue to be creative and flexible within the protocol framework, and that we will not negotiate. So this is basically consistent very clearly with the position which was also put forward yesterday by Vice President Šefčovič. So I would leave it to that in terms of the phone call. I'm not exactly sure how long it took, but if you bear with me, I can find out the information on the length and provide it to you in the afternoon. In relation to the informal meeting with French President Macron, which took place on Tuesday evening, what I can tell you is they discussed a broad range of current affairs, and in particular issues which will be relevant for the French presidency of the Council of the European Union, which will take place in the first part of next year. So a very broad range of matters which would be important for that part of the year. Catherine, you have a question.
Yes, Anna. So the Lord Frost and the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland say that they have a legitimate case, should they so wish, to launch unilateral action under Article 16, and they cite trade diversion, and they point to the large amount of trade diversion that's already taken place. Do you think that, does the Commission agree that should they wish to, there is a case here, or is it an obvious consequence of the Trade and Cooperation Agreement and the fact that the UK doesn't wish to align on SPS? So I'm just wondering, is that claim, does it stand up in terms of, if, for example, the UK, if you've turned around and you've said you're not going to renegotiate, you're not going to reopen the withdrawal agreement and Northern Ireland Protocol, but then the threat behind this proposal is that the UK will, it believes, legitimately launch an Article 16 procedure. Does the Commission take a view on that?
Thank you very much, Catherine. I will give the floor to Ariana to provide an answer, and I will also invite her to answer to the last part of Jennifer's question. I apologize that I forgot it. It was about whether there will be any meetings at various levels soon in relation to the UK. So perhaps you can start with that.
Absolutely. So indeed, we have a number of committees that relate to the withdrawal agreement. There are meetings that will occur in the future, but as far as I'm aware, there's no meeting planned in that sense for the time being. I will, of course, update you if I was to learn about a meeting already planned. In this sense, I do not believe there's already a meeting scheduled between Vice President Šefčovič and the UK counterparts, but as Vice President Šefčovič has said yesterday in the statement we published, he does look forward to speaking to Lord Frost soon. So we will hopefully be in a position to confirm a meeting in the coming future. For what concerns the second question, or actually Catherine's question, I'm afraid that at this stage I do not have anything to add with respect to what we said. We do stand by the protocol. We are willing to continue to find creative solutions within the framework of the protocol, but we do not agree to renegotiations. I would not comment on other aspects or announcements, and we are in contact with the UK. We will, take it from there. Actually.
Thank you very much, Ariana. Are there any additional questions on this or on other matters for us today? This doesn't seem to be the case, so thank you very much for your... Oh, yes, there is one. Thank you. Go ahead.
So, Gianluca Martucci, unews.it, Italian newspaper. This morning, Chinese Deputy Health Minister said that China is rejecting the second phase of investigation on the origin of the COVID-19. How do you comment on this? And what action you can take given your support on President Joe Biden's proposal 1 month ago to continue the investigation of on the origin of the virus? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will give the floor to Stefan for this question, but obviously there is also an external affairs angle, which would also be for Nabila, so we may complement or get back to you afterwards.
Thank you very much. There has already been a study by WHO on the origins of the coronavirus. But as also outlined in that report, further work will have to be pursued to understand the origin of the novel coronavirus and its introduction into human population, without excluding any possibilities a priori. What is very important for us is open scientific debate, transparency, and peer review, which is crucial to reach a high standard of conclusions. And for that reason, the European Union and the member states encourage WHO also to facilitate and support further engagement of the international scientific community. In this respect, we remain fully committed to working together with all countries and the international community on ways to enhance the organization of field missions in the context of COVID-19 and for future global health emergencies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan. So I believe this closes the round of questions and answers of today. Thank you very much for your patience, for engagement. And do not forget the press conferences following the informal ministerial meetings, which take place this afternoon, including the one following the Competitiveness Council at 4 o'clock. Have a good afternoon and see you tomorrow.